Good afternoon, everybody. We are hosting a lovely chat today with a wonderful friend and colleague of ours, Jenni from All Ears Counselling. Hello, Jenni.
Hello.
Hello. So we are very fortunate to have Jenni live with us today. Jenni runs a private practice in South Chailey and works with adults throughout East and West Sussex across a wide range of varying issues. Jenni also works, we're very fortunate, alongside us here at Oscar Swish Foundation. And Jenni offers bereavement counselling and support to couples and families who've sadly experienced baby loss, including IVF, miscarriage, stillbirth and neonatal death. Here at Oscar Swish Foundation, we understand how devastating losing a baby or babies can be. We want to extend our sincerest and most heartfelt apologies, and just to share our understanding with you. We're here for anyone who's walking this journey. We know that the grieving process is different for everyone, and each person may need a different level of support. One of the ways that we've been asked to extend our support is in the form of informal chats with parents and professionals, mainly those that are involved in our kind of care during our journeys before, during and after. The content that we may discuss today may be upsetting and it may be triggering, and for this reason we ask you to take care of your heart and understand your own needs and where you're at in your journey. For you to make an informed decision, we ask that you make note of the content that was in the description here, and it will be following these posts. So today we'll be discussing boundaries, awareness, permission and seeking comfort, all based around well-being and supporting yourself after the loss of a baby. So thank you so much for your time today, Jenni. We are really grateful. Now I've got that long trigger warning out of the way, we can relax into the chat. So how long have you been a counsellor for?
I've been a counsellor for nearly 5 years now, and I did my training, goodness, nearly 10 years ago. And after that, with any counselling comes a considerable amount of time of voluntary work while you kind of increase your hours and just prepare you for private practice. So it feels a long time ago now when I began this journey. And obviously been working with Oscar Swish now for, gosh, I think it's about 3-4 years now, is it? And thoroughly enjoy that extension to my work. It's very meaningful, and I think it's different slightly from the other work I do in terms of it being limited sessions, and that we're working with 6 sessions, and obviously with my other private clients, I've been working with some for years now, so it's a slightly different way. But it is incredibly rewarding, and actually just being able to sit and be privileged to hear people's stories, have them open up to you when they come in a moment of crisis, of deep pain, and being able to, at the end of those 6 sessions, just to have known that maybe helped it be a little bit more bearable for them, their loss, and for them to be able to just start thinking about a little bit forward, and that there is a future, there is something else to go on to while holding their loss, honouring their loss. And it's, as I say, it's just a real privilege working with Oscar Swish, and I enjoy the work very much.
Well, we are incredibly grateful, and I think as someone who has experienced the loss of my firstborn, I didn't have counselling, and I can see the incredible shift in people's healing because we work so closely with our families and we know them generally very well. I can tell those that have had counselling and those who haven't, and it's really interesting, and that sometimes makes me want to kind of go back and have that counselling experience that I never had. And I know you can come back, I can go to it at any point, and I know one day I will, because I see the incredible work that goes on. I don't see it obviously in the sessions, but I hear the amazing feedback that we get from families. And I think for someone to be able to acknowledge that help and support that they've had from their counsellor when they are in such kind of turmoil and confusion and all of the range of feelings that go with grieving a loss, I think it is an incredible testament to the work that yourself and counsellors do.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's the fact that Oscar's Wish managed to, raise the very, very important funding in order for people to get this support. It may be 6 sessions, but it'll be surprising how much work can be done within that time. Although it sounds so limited, it's actually incredibly worthwhile. And I think that's all kudos to you, Gemma, and the whole Wish Oscar's Wish team. And I think you made a really, really valid point there. You can have counselling at any time, but for many who may be watching this and thinking, whether your loss is of recent time or whether it's from some time ago, there is no right way to do counselling. There is no perfect time to enter it. It's all, we'll be talking about awareness and when things feel right. And actually, it's never too late. Mm-hmm. It's okay to revisit, even if it's after some time. And I think that's just probably really nice for people to know that there is no expectation from a counsellor's point of view that you come at any specific time. My only suggestion, recommendation, as you know, is that we don't see people immediately after their loss, that there should be some time lapse to allow a little bit of processing, because any loss, baby loss at any gestation, is hugely impactful, both physically and mentally. And in order for the counselling to have a real benefit, just having a bit of gap where perhaps the shock will still be there, but actually that they are able to engage in the service that we provide is a really, really important point. And I think I'd just like to extend my personal condolences to anybody who may be watching who's experienced baby loss. There's people that care and want to be able to offer you that support. It's wonderful that you've all heard about Oscar's Wish Foundation, and I hope that some of what you hear today will be helpful to you. We are so sorry for your pain. We're sorry that you're in the position that you have to watch this broadcast in the first place. But there are people that care. There are people there to support you, and I hope that you find something from today really helpful.
Definitely, and that leads really nicely into the fact that this year's theme around Baby Loss Awareness Week is about well-being. And I know when we initially were thinking about setting up this chat, it was looking at ways that we could offer people that understanding of well-being, because we all know as humans and as women, we're not very good at it. We're not very good at looking after ourselves. And drawing on personal experience, I shut down after the loss of Oscar, if I'm completely honest, and I didn't even understand the term well-being. It wasn't even on my radar. So to be able to talk about this today and to be able to talk openly and share with families that will also connect with that, oh my gosh, I get that. I get that on so many different levels, and also being able to identify, like you say, about the awareness, about boundaries, like what are they, what does that mean? So I think that leads really nicely into to the kind of the first element that we were going to discuss about boundaries, and we were talking in our via our emails about how do you set those boundaries for those around you, to understand when you have experienced the loss of your baby or your pregnancy, or however you wish to refer to your loss. How do you tell people what your boundaries are, what your expectations are, what your needs are? How do you go about that?
Well, let's just kind of help give a bit of clarification about what boundary is. We're talking about emotional boundaries. We're talking about the tool, really useful tool, to have something in place that you feel in control of when you've experienced such a huge shock and quite possibly some sense of trauma within that loss. But when you have that no control, this wasn't expected to happen, it wasn't how it was supposed to be, but actually then having some kind of semblance of control, it becomes incredibly important. And what an emotional boundary does, it gives you that sense of you get to choose. You get to have choice about who you share your story with. And there are many well-meaning people that will empathise and sympathise with the loss, and they may be curious. They want to know how you are. They want to know, maybe they want to know a little bit too much, or they're just wanting to put questions to you that you don't feel comfortable with. And what a boundary enables you to do is to say, actually, let's just stop here. Let me kind of get a gauge of, do I want to share this information just because you've asked?
Yeah.
Do I want to say
Yeah.
anything?
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about a kind of a boundary, a physical boundary, like a fence or a wall, that's kind of usually aimed at protection, keeping out. But if we think of it, an emotional boundary as kind of a self preference, self preservation.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I get that.
It's a protection. Okay, so we're talking about a protection for self,
Yeah.
and then the kind of that stopgap to choose about what you're going to give. So let's kind of like, think about the different ways that might come about. So there might be, of course, those closest to you, friends or close friends or family, who are wanting to ask. And you probably can kind of gauge that comfort level a little bit easier about whether you're okay or not to talk.
Yeah.
Then you might have something like a work colleague or something, an associate, someone not quite so close. And again, they're just asking after your welfare. They want to know that you're okay. They may have heard what's happened.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, I don't know. I'm not quite sure if I'm at that comfort level to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so a good kind of strategy, something that might be helpful to say, would be, thank you for asking. But actually, I'm choosing not to share this with you.
Yeah.
Or, I'm choosing not to speak further about this. Because what you're trying to do in that communication when someone's asking, and hopefully most people are asking with really good intention, they really are asking, they want you to be okay. You're not okay, but they want you to be okay. And they're kind of asking for that kind of, we're not sure what to say, and you're kind of pulled into that conversation before you know it.
Mm-hmm.
If we acknowledge that we've actually asked about it and say thank you, it helps that person not feel shame. That there'll be that always there curiosity. Am I okay to ask? Should I ask?
Yeah.
And it's a bit like when we're talking about any questions in death, that actually we don't know. We don't talk about it a lot. We don't know. People are stuck with what to ask. So when somebody does ask, if they then receive a response which is very difficult, it might stop them asking again. And actually, we want to encourage that, support. We want to encourage people to ask questions, but the most important part is that we keep you safe, because this is your story, this is your individual experience, and you might just not be okay to talk about it, and that is absolutely fine.
Yes.
So by saying thank you for asking, and I'm choosing not to share more at the moment. You don't owe them any further explanation. You don't have to say anything more than that about why you're doing it, or explain that you know who you are talking to. You may wish to say, look, I'm okay. I've got some friends or family to talk to. But the most important part is that you're not pulled into talking about what you're not ready to talk about.
Sure.
Does
That's
that kind of help?
Yeah, it's so funny because as you were saying that, it was taking me back to certain situations where I didn't have those tools, and I am an oversharer anyway. As a person, I am an oversharer, and then afterwards I think, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or why did I say that? And I think having had that in the toolbox, and even now having that in the toolbox, would be a really beneficial skill to protect myself and maintain my well-being, especially in such circumstances where you're not maybe wanting to share certain things with someone. There were many uncomfortable situations, especially when going back to work, and I know from conversations with our families that it's the going back to work, the expectation that you're back at work now, so you must be okay. And those a strategy like that, a skill or something that they've just got, that they can just kind of pull out to use, a statement that feels comfortable, that we can even practice, with those closest to us if needs be, so that we are more confident in responding to those around us that maybe we don't want to share with. I can see how that would really help kind of protect and guard your heart, and give you choice, because we know that loss presents on so many levels. So many things are taken away from you that you have no control over. You can't change many parts of what happens, or because it's happened. So this gives you that element of I can actually choose. This is my choice.
Yeah.
When so much has kind of been taken away from you, there's no choice, that element has been removed. So obviously that can be used, whoever you wish to maybe not share with, whether it is a colleague or even with friends. I know friends and family would have understood if I'd have said that to them as well, and they would have taken offence. Because like you say, you're saying, thank you, I appreciate you asking, but I'm not ready. And I think that's really, really, really powerful. So one of the other things we were going to talk about is awareness, and how you build awareness of what our personal needs are, what our needs are. Could you talk a little bit about that from a counselling point of view?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is a really natural part of the counselling process where somebody is in turmoil, they are having a real challenge and difficulty. And so we're really asking somebody to sit with themselves. Obviously, in the counselling room, they are sitting with me, and I will ask and invite them to start thinking, how are you feeling? What are you thinking? What's going on for you right now? It's kind of something we call immediacy. And then what we're really trying to do is invite people to have this skill for themselves. So when they're out of the counselling room, have a real kind of self-awareness building. In order to meet your needs, you kind of got to be aware of what your needs are. And the only way to be aware of what your needs are is to pay attention to yourself. So we're asking somebody to pay attention to what's going on for them right now. Now, when you're really challenged, and particularly with, in the bereavement process with baby loss, there's going to be so much overwhelmment. There are going to be times when you can't make sense of your thoughts. There'll be confusion, disorientation, shock, all sorts of kind of complex emotions going on. But if we're only managing to just kind of take some time and sit and just kind of like notice how you're feeling and just sit with that. And the more in tune you get, so am I overwhelmed? Am I feeling the need to cry? Am I feeling angry? Do I notice that I've got that emotion kind of beginning to surface? Obviously with grief, there are so many emotions that we associate. And we'll talk about that, the kind of, it comes in the kind of non-linear approach to grief a little bit later on. But if we can kind of begin to get used to what's going on, we are building this permission to say that all of these feelings are okay, and actually just allowing them. Because if we can kind of feel an okayness that they're there, they're more likely to come, and we're more likely to be in a position to process them, which is again what we do in the counselling room. We're encouraging them. We're not trying to suppress them. Suppressed emotion is usually the start of the lead up to depression, because we're not processing, we're not giving them attention, we're not able to tolerate them, and so therefore we kind of put them aside, we ignore them, calling it avoidance in psychotherapy, that we are just wanting them to go away because we're in distress, we're not wanting to look at them. If we can bring a nurturing side to that gentle noticing, what do I feel right now? Okay, what do I need to alleviate that? Maybe I need some time away. Maybe I need connection with somebody. Maybe I need time by myself. Maybe I need to be with my partner. Maybe I need to be in. Maybe a way of contacting is, I often encourage people to, if they've had a nursery set up for their expectant babies, to spend some time. It's about connection with your emotions. We're talking about being very careful with this, being careful with self when we're kind of introducing these emotions. But we're trying to understand what's going on for us at any given time, and also to notice the thoughts. People will be familiar with the phrase mindfulness, and that is actually kind of allowing our thoughts to come and to go in order to ground ourselves and maybe enter some meditation. With awareness, we're allowing the thoughts. What am I thinking? What's going on for me? Can I think? Am I am I completely stuck because actually I've got so much going on? When we kind of begin to pay attention, it's more likely that we're inclined to know whether we're coping, whether we're okay enough to tolerate what we're experiencing. And that is a really then useful sign to say, do I need some more support? Do I need to reach out for somebody? Do I need to connect? Do I need to ask for some counselling, some assistance somewhere? Because we kind of begin to recognise, actually, I'm not okay. I need something more. And whilst we anticipate not being okay, it's about saying, I'm not okay, but I would like to go and speak to my family about that, my partner about that, my friends, the charity, or additional help. And you're just becoming familiar. Okay, and the more familiar you become with yourself, the less frightening it is, the less more likely you're going to worry about what you're experiencing, because sadness, anger, all of those are so normal within the grieving process that we want to bring an okayness to it. These are okay to experience. We're just trying to help you experience them safely by getting to know yourself and give yourself a permission about that.
So if we don't spend that time, recognizing all of those things you've just discussed, what can the kind of effects of that be on our mental health, our well-being? What can that then lead to as such?
We might expect overwhelmment, and if we're overwhelmed, we're more likely not to be able to function on the day-to-day basis. So that might play out into all manner of things. It might affect it might affect just your connection with people, whether you're able to communicate. You might have that pull to shut down, to kind of almost imagine that you're better off coping alone, which is very unlikely the case. Withdrawal, and of course, as I just mentioned, suppressing emotions and suppressing feelings is likely to trigger depression. And once we're kind of in that level of depression, and we would expect there's a difference between experiencing kind of mild depression comes on it's not linear, it comes on a huge diverse scale. We would be hoping to avoid clinical depression, okay, that real shutdown. And we're saying that it's okay, that you would be expected to feel differently during this time of grief, but we don't want it to debilitate you. We want you to be able to function, to be able to get up in the morning, to be able to, even with your sadness, your heaviness, your very highly likely, no motivation, you just don't feel like yourself. That is all part of your grief. But when you then kind of add depression into it, it becomes a kind of like an extra layer of difficulty, and then asking to help, because we kind of then move into a different form of shutdown, where you just don't want to. You want to kind of just pull away from everybody.
Yeah, I really recognise lots of what you're saying with conversations that we have with parents, obviously on our online support groups, and also through messages. And we always have to make it really clear that we aren't medical professions. We are not there as a substitute for all the incredible therapy that they can access, but we are here to listen, and if we can signpost them on. And that's very often when people recognise that if they haven't had counselling and they haven't taken that offer of counselling when they were in the hospitals with our bereavement teams, that actually they recognise now might be a good time to kind of have it on my radar. It might be a good time, it might be 6 months on, a year on, 6 years on, 20 years on, but now might be a good time to start addressing some of these things that maybe have just been there kind of in the background, mulling over it, and every now and then kind of rear up and can become, like you say, all consuming. One of the other elements of our discussion today was allowing, there's no right or wrong way to grieve. And I know we hear that slogan all the time. But what does that actually mean? There's no right or wrong. Of course it says what it is on the tin kind of thing, but what does that mean? Because there's such a I don't know if it's a societal thing or a cultural thing, but there is an expectation that at a certain point you will be okay, and that point may never come for some people. So what does that mean? Can we unpick that for people?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've named it, that everybody's fear is I'll never feel okay again. And what we're really trying to do in supporting and offering counselling particularly is saying that life is going to be different. Okay, it won't be the same again, but it will be tolerable, and you will be able to feel okay again, despite your grief, despite your bereavement, and the trauma that you may have been through. We're we're saying that grief, as I mentioned before, that some of the more familiar emotions that we experience, denial, anger, oh goodness, sadness, shock, all of those, we kind of expect them, we kind of hear about them. Even if you've experienced bereavement before, this bereavement will likely feel differently. Because we're talking in with death, bereavement, loss. Every loss is individual. Every loss is unique. So how can it have a uniform outcome? How can your grief be the same as somebody else's? It can't, because it's your individual experience. It will depend on a manner of things how you respond to grief. It will respond on you. It will it will depend on your previous experience with it. Whether you've had a relationship with loss before, and if you have, how much that will impact this loss. And so we kind of begin to get an understanding that grief is really complex, and that is why there is no method to it. But that the more familiar we can become with what I might expect when I'm grieving, and particularly with baby loss, it helps it become familiar. And actually, if you can become familiar, you're more likely to think, I kind of allow it to be what it's going to be. Yeah. And when I'm working with my Oscar's Wish clients, I'm really kind of encouraging that to have a lack of expectation over the grief. That for everybody, again's well intended advice of you'll be okay, and it will last, give it a few months or whatever that well-meaning advice knows. And I'm sure lots of people experienced this, that nobody can tell. I can't tell. I can't tell my clients this will feel differently in whatever, because it isn't linear. So that is kind of what we're meaning by that there is no kind of time structure to it. But what we do know is that grief often works in waves, and that actually all of the emotions that we've talked about some kind of have more precedence at different times. They'll become figurative, and then they kind of pull away, and another emotion will come forward. So let's say, for example, at the beginning of the loss, in all likelihood with baby loss, it will be shock. It will be denial, that disbelief, all of those really complex and they're very hard emotions to process, because you don't understand what's happening to you. You can't retain any of the information that's being given to you, either by the hospitals or the doctors, whoever it is that has been involved in your loss. And it's a very frightening time at the beginning, because actually, even if you are there and you're hearing people talk to you and people are offering their support, you might not feel there. You might not feel able to be ready to hear any of that. It's a kind of it's just coming. It's just coming. And we're really trying to work with just saying, when you're hearing in counselling, where I was talking about this building of awareness, saying, what do you need? Allow the time, build that time. Don't expect too much of yourself. This is about the time to be kind to yourself. You did not ask for this to happen. You will have a sense, many often have a sense of shaming and blame to their self. And it's so sad to see when I'm witness to people who can't help but internalize the blame that they feel. And I really work with them there deeply and help them through that. It takes time, of course.
I can't imagine. I'm just thinking now, all those why questions, that must be really hard when someone puts those to you that says, why did this happen? Because naturally you wouldn't know. They don't know, and it is almost a rhetorical question. They almost know maybe they won't have an answer, but it's still a question they need answered.
And so we work exactly with that, with the being able to tolerate not knowing.
Yeah.
It sounds a really unimaginable place that you can get to. How can I be okay with that? How can I be okay with not knowing? But it's very difficult to explain, but that comes through the nurturing part of the relationship and the kindness, the empathy that I hopefully demonstrate with my clients. I'm encouraging them to do that for themselves. that is the well-being we're talking about. Maybe as well clarifying what well-being is. Well-being is being okay enough. We're looking to be okay enough to function, to be able to do the things that we hope to do again. And that might just be returning to work. That might just be getting dressed in the morning. That might just be being able to feed ourselves and have a bath, whatever that might be. It is not some kind of magical place you can get to, but it's about self-care. It's about learning to look after yourself. You're important. You may feel that real low esteem at this point, that how did this happen to me? Again, that blame coming in, and so it's about saying, you didn't ask this to happen. There is no explanation often, and that I'm truly sorry for them. Yeah, I'm truly sorry for those that don't get their answer to that. It's heartbreaking, and I'm with them throughout that. But the more we can kind of be gentle with ourselves and just think, okay, that awareness, looking for needs, what do I need? Again, is it connection? Is it being with people? Is it alone time? Is it reaching out? Is it coming to talking therapy? That awareness and that kind of, it comes back to you implement that in your way of grieving. Okay, that your grief is unique to you. You do it your way. The better you get to know yourself, the more you can allow your grief to happen. Okay, and then it begins to kind of process and things hopefully get a little bit easier. We know that we can't take away the memories, but we can help build towards tolerance and resilience for the individual.
Definitely. And I remember explaining to my mum some days that I couldn't walk forwards, but if I could take a side step, that was better than going backwards.
Yeah.
And I think that's how sometimes grief can feel, like you say, with the waves, especially maybe coming up to a milestone. One that really hit me was Christmas, because that was just over a month after Oscar died, and that was a really big thing, because Christmas is about family. And my family is lots of children, lots of little children. It's about, the focus on them. And now my son wasn't going to be there. And I just remember that feeling like, well, we can't ever have Christmas again. And I'm almost 7 years on. And actually Christmas is starting to get back to those customs, but he's incorporated in that. So like you say, there is no right or wrong way. And whilst it didn't feel right to even have Christmas for the first few years, now with time, with understanding, with tolerance, with being kind to myself, and with the family understanding and accepting that, we're slowly starting to get back to that place. And whilst people say time, some people say time is a healer, some people say time isn't a healer, and I think that completely depends on the person who you're talking to and their situation. But in some circumstances, for me, time has allowed me to acknowledge what has happened and process what has happened. And I know, from conversations with lots of our families, that time allows space, being, processing. So one of the final points that we were chatting about was how you can seek comfort, because if you're at a point in your grief where maybe looking after yourself is taken, a kind of a side shuffle, and you're not coping as well, what ways can you seek comfort after the loss of your baby or babies?
This is going to be very individual in terms of the type of loss that you've experienced, the gestation that the loss came at. I'm going to just for a moment touch towards and just kind of trigger warning, sensitivity warning. Just for a moment, I'll be talking about stillbirth. And what I find is very helpful for people. You just touched on your experience of Christmas, Gemma, and how it's been important for you to incorporate Oscar's memory into your Christmas in the present days. And I think that's beautiful, and it's something that I work with. And I'm wondering, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm just wondering if you can relate that to a kind of comfort. How do you find that in terms of honouring his name, talking about him, and just thinking, would you be able to associate that with some semblance of
I
comfort?
feel like he's there. I feel by acknowledging him, so I haven't. Oh, he's not in here. He's normally in my office when I'm working. I have a memory bear which was sent to me with some beautiful flowers after Oscar died, and he's been in my. Well, he sleeps on my bed and he sleeps with me every night, and he comes to all of our family functions and events, and all the children actually fight over him. And just hearing his name, hearing them all saying, Oscar, I want Oscar, I want Oscar. He sits at the head of the table at Christmas. He has his little Christmas hat on, and he has a little Christmas cracker. Obviously, he doesn't have Christmas dinner. But we acknowledge that wherever Oscar is, and mainly in our hearts, he is an important part of our family, and he is part of our family. And for us, that feels right. Throughout the day, like we might watch a Christmas film, and then Uncle Ali, my brother, will have Oscar Bear sat on his lap, completely incidentally. It just happens, and that for me is how it might be if he was here. You know, he probably would climb on his lap, or and I always buy him a little candle. And we have that little day. So for us, that's what feels right, and it makes me smile. It wouldn't feel right to go to family on Christmas Day without taking Oscar Bear. So that's
You beautifully described that, Gemma. You've really helped. I hope for some people watching will, because they might say, how can that be? I can't imagine that. And what my kind of part of the nurturing and bringing comfort is saying, it's okay to talk about your baby. It's okay to talk about how you imagine things to be had they been different. And actually the reaction that I get, particularly with my Oscar's Wish clients who are, you know, so lucky to work with, is that actually it's like, oh, I can talk. Okay, it's like, because for some people who don't know what to say when they're asking the person that's bereaved, they kind of want to avoid it. They don't know how to talk about it, what to mention. And boy, do we honour all the babies that have been lost as part of counselling. It's so important. These beautiful babies were supposed to be here. So we use their names where that's appropriate, where they're there. And when we're trying to talk about comfort in other stages, it's about, some people will have, again, you're talking about Oscar's Bear, we're talking about memory association, or even if that memory obviously hasn't been able to happen, you know, how we would have liked things to be, because your imagination, they're your thoughts. You're free to have your thoughts about how you wanted it to be. It forms part of your grief. And actually, as opposed to thinking, I can't think about it, if you can imagine being enough into your grief that you can begin to tolerate, actually, this is how I imagined it to be, and I'm okay to, actually, I find it comforting to talk about it. It's really, really helpful. And therefore, there comes the permission. There comes the permission to mention names, to think about. For some people, there will be photographs. For some people, there will be possessions. There will be memory boxes. There will be lots of different things that they can associate that will help them begin to have a memory of their way of choosing. I encourage people to come up with their own ways, and as opposed to suggest, so that I can kind of begin to find, how would you like to think about your baby? Would you like to think about your baby? How would you like to talk about them? And allowing them that space to say, I can talk. I want to talk. I want my baby to not be forgotten. I want my baby to be remembered in my history, even though it's so painful. But actually then the conversation gets a little bit easier. And I know that, I think in one of your one of the other video chats that will be forthcoming in a really important week is going to be about how to talk to siblings. And future family. And actually, if we begin to get the idea that we can talk, that becomes so much easier. This is all about permission and actually seeking the comfort by, actually, you get to make the rules up. You didn't, again, we're going to go back to that phrase, you didn't ask for any of this, you didn't ask to be in this position, it was something that was taken from you. But you do get to choose how you would like to associate your baby in the future, how you would like their memory to be, how you would like to choose to speak about them. And that is a kind of a natural comfort that comes from it. So finding a way, finding something that you can get some peace from, some comfort, blanket, toy. It's a slow process. This isn't something that, again, obviously, when people come for counselling, I'm able to kind of guide them through that process. And I hope people from this will again, we're talking about there's no right or wrong way, but just we're talking within a time, you know, it will be different for everybody, but eventually there will come a day where this will feel a little bit easier to talk about, that actually you might feel able to have something close with you. That might come sooner, you might want that immediately, it might come later. It doesn't matter when it comes, it's just that you will feel able to connect again. And so you can see it's kind of like different ways when we're talking about comfort. Then there is kind of like comfort when we're talking about comfort from support, comfort from, again, counselling, comfort from what you get from friends or family. Comfort is different for everybody. But it's what's really important is that, again, we're paying attention. What do I need? What's going to help me? Is it you know, something as simple as a bath, or, you know, creating an ambience that is soothing and calming. Lots of different levels here, but I think the really important one was, you know, comfort around talking about my baby, the memories I would have liked to have had, and having a comfort level as well as kind of a physical comfort.
That's really, really interesting. And again, all the way through this conversation, my brain is going ping, ping, ping. As you say certain things, I can totally almost hear how our viewers will be able to respond to what feels right for them. So it may be that they hear something really loud that you said that really resembles with them because of where they are at in their journey. And there were key things that you were saying then that really, really resembled with me, and they were mostly the self-care bits, the bits that I definitely don't remember doing, but I'm very aware of doing now. And that took a lot more time for me, and the seeking comfort from objects, from things, from people came very soon in the grief for me personally. But all the self-care, the well-being, the recognizing what my needs were kind of was secondary to that. And it's just really interesting as you're saying that how different parts of this conversation that we've had today will resemble with different people. And actually, even if grandparents, you know, partners, friends that are supporting you through your loss hear what we've been talking about today, there will be plenty of moments of that, you know, ping, 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 where they may think, oh my gosh, that's something I could do. Or I remember my son or my daughter saying that that's how they were feeling and I wasn't sure how to respond. So the tools that you've talked about today, I know will be so beneficial for people, Jenni. I'm honestly so grateful. I personally have got so much out of this conversation, and I know that this journey can feel like a minefield. It can feel for some people that it will go on forever, but giving yourself permission to feel what you need to feel, be how you need to be, and recognize and be with those feelings is so, so important. Is there any kind of summary or lasting thoughts that you'd like to share with our viewers as we kind of wrap up this conversation?
I would just say, as we're kind of entering Baby Loss Awareness Week, to be kind to yourselves, to be gentle with yourselves and what you expose yourself to, the amount of time. Just again, you know, introducing that awareness that we've spoken about today. This is about your story, your journey. Nobody else needs to intervene in that. But just really take the time to go easy. And I wish you all all well. And I'm sorry that we're talking under circumstances which we wouldn't wish on anybody. But I hope that people have found the information helpful. And as always, it's my pleasure to kind of continue my work with Oscar's Wish. It's very important work that you do.
Thank you, Jenni. Thank you. I'm just going to summarise with reminding people that if you have found any part of watching today difficult, any parts of the conversation distressing or upsetting, that SANS do run a free helpline, and you can contact them on 0808 164 3332. And the landline is, the helpline is free to call from landline and mobiles. And we just really want to kind of share our extended thoughts and support. And please do take care of yourselves, everyone. This can feel like a really difficult week, but also a really positive week to give us a voice and a platform to educate the world around us. So thank you, Jenni. I'm really grateful for your time, and I hope we can follow on this conversation with lots of other elements, during our work together over the coming months and years.
I'm sure there'll be lots more that we can bring.
Thank you, Jenni.
Thanks, Emma. Thank you.
Have a gentle day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. That was the time. The broadcast is taking a while to end, so